A daring desert feat. A French adventurer named Émile Loray was both bold and brilliant, an experienced electrical engineer with a love for high-risk travel. Thrill-seeking was second nature to him, and he often chased adrenaline-fueled experiences. However, nothing could have prepared him for the life or death situation he encountered while traversing the Moroccan Sahara. His mission? To navigate the harsh desert in a simple yet tough Citroën 2CV, a car chosen for its reliability and minimal design, qualities that would soon become crucial. The Sahara is one of Earth's most unforgiving places. Endless dunes, searing heat surpassing 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and not a soul in sight. Even so, Émile was upbeat as he journeyed through the rugged, remote sands. But catastrophe struck when his vehicle struck a hidden rock beneath the surface. With a shuddering crash, the suspension broke, and the car was rendered useless, leaving Émile stranded in the middle of nowhere. Faced with a dire situation, Émile quickly understood the danger he was in. His options were grim. Walking out with only limited food and water meant likely death. He needed a creative alternative, and fast. Surveying the wreckage, a wild yet inspired idea came to him. He would use his engineering expertise to rebuild the broken car into a single-wheel motorbike. It sounded outrageous, but it was his only hope. Over the next 12 days, Émile toiled relentlessly. He dismantled the car piece by piece, salvaging every usable component. He transformed the chassis into a crude frame, repositioned the engine to power a lone wheel, and used spare parts and basic tools to craft what barely passed for a motorcycle. The process was punishing. Days under the scorching sun tested his endurance as he rationed food and water. Nights brought biting cold, adding to his physical toll. He endured thirst, hunger, and fatigue, but he never wavered. With every adjustment and innovation, he got closer to creating something that could move. At last, after nearly 2 exhausting weeks, the makeshift vehicle was complete. Though far from perfect, it worked. Summoning the last of his strength, Émile mounted his invention, fired up the engine, and maneuvered across the brutal terrain. Against all odds, the desert mechanic pulled off a miracle, turning a disaster into a powerful tale of survival and brilliance. His escape from the Sahara remains a stunning testament to human ingenuity and sheer determination. The Last Soul of San Nicolas. This is the remarkable account of strength and solitude. In the early 19th century, the Nicolio tribe lived on San Nicolas Island, a remote, wind-beaten isle roughly 60 miles off California's coast. For generations, they thrived in isolation. But illness and violence decimated their numbers, and in 1835, Spanish missionaries organized a rescue mission for the remaining people. Among them was a young woman, now remembered as Juana Maria, whose life would soon take a heart-wrenching turn. Amid the hurried evacuation, she was inadvertently left behind. Some say she stayed to search for a loved one. Others think she missed the final boat. Whatever the reason, Juana Maria was alone as the last ship disappeared over the horizon. Completely cut off, she had no way to call for help. No reason to believe anyone would return. But she didn't surrender. Drawing from ancestral knowledge, she hunted, foraged, and survived. She built shelters from driftwood and whale bones, made clothing from animal hides, and crafted tools from bones and stones. Her diet came from the island itself, sea creatures, wild roots, berries, and shellfish. She lived on resourcefulness and instinct. Each day tested her endurance, not just physically, but emotionally, as solitude became her only companion. Over the years, rumors surfaced. Fishermen and travelers occasionally spotted smoke rising from the island, suggesting someone still lived there. But no one came to investigate. Juana Maria continued surviving alone, becoming part of the land around her. Her willpower would have broken many, but she adapted with astonishing grace and courage. Finally, in 1853, 18 years later, Captain George Nidever and his crew arrived on San Nicolas. To their amazement, they discovered a woman who had defied the odds, living alone for nearly 2 decades. She welcomed them with joy, though they couldn't understand her language. Despite the communication barrier, she was healthy and cheerful, her spirit untouched by years of solitude. When Juana Maria returned to the mainland, efforts were made to find someone who could speak her language. But it was too late. The Nicolio people had vanished, either absorbed by other groups or lost to time. She was the last of her kind. Sadly, unfamiliar illnesses soon overwhelmed her, and she died just weeks after her rescue. Yet her story lives on. Known today as the lone woman of San Nicolas Island, Juana Maria represents a profound example of endurance, cultural memory, and the strength of the human spirit in the face of total isolation. Adrift, the extraordinary will of José Salvador Alvarenga. Our final tale carries us across the vastness of the Pacific Ocean to the year 2012, where a fisherman from El Salvador, José Salvador Alvarenga, began one of the most astonishing survival sagas ever recorded. A seasoned seafarer, Alvarenga was used to spending long stretches on open waters, but nothing in his years of experience could have braced him for the storm he was about to face. Teaming up with a younger fisherman, Ezequiel Cordoba, the duo launched from the coast of Mexico for what was expected to be a brief, two-day fishing expedition. However, fate had other intentions. Only a few hours into their voyage, they were caught in a violent tempest that wrecked their radio system and knocked out the boat's engine. The fierce winds carried them hundreds of miles from their intended course. As time wore on, it became clear they were utterly adrift. The days quickly slipped into weeks, and the grim truth settled in. They were stranded, surrounded by the open sea, with no means of communication or direction. At first, both Alvarenga and Cordoba worked hard to stay hopeful. They carefully stretched their minimal food rations and prayed that the sky would offer rain to refill their dwindling water supply. As desperation grew, they turned to unthinkable methods to stay alive. With no fresh water in sight, they consumed turtle blood and even resorted to drinking their own urine to fight off dehydration. For nourishment, they caught birds and fish, devouring them raw to preserve energy. But the relentless, unchanging ocean soon began to weigh heavily on them. The Pacific, beautiful yet brutal, offered no mercy. Towering waves pounded their small vessel. Salt water seared their skin. The sun beat down mercilessly, threatening to sap their final reserves of strength. As the weeks passed, Cordoba's hope began to fade. The harsh physical and emotional toll started to unravel his will. Alvarenga did everything he could to motivate and uplift his companion, but after nearly a month lost at sea, Cordoba could hold on no longer. He passed away, claimed by the sea and its suffering. For Alvarenga, the loss was soul-crushing. The sorrow, the loneliness, and the guilt were overwhelming, especially since he had promised to return Cordoba's body to his family. But in the brutal, salt-choked environment, he faced a gut-wrenching decision. If he were to survive, he'd have to let his friend's body go. Endurance. Now utterly alone, Alvarenga descended into a new level of solitude. To avoid losing his grip on reality, he began speaking to Cordoba as if he were still there, invented imaginary companions, and held conversations with the ocean itself. His struggle wasn't only physical, it was a mental war with isolation. His body grew frail with hunger and malnutrition. His skin cracked and blistered from the sun and salt. Every dawn became a test. Would he survive just one more day? Still, he persevered. He caught sea turtles, seabirds, and fish, ate them raw, and drank their blood when no fresh water was available. Storms repeatedly threatened to flip his boat, but he clung tightly through each one, weathering raging winds and mountainous waves. Under the searing sun by day and bone-chilling cold by night, he held on. Hallucinations came. On multiple occasions, he spotted land on the horizon, only to approach and watch it vanish. These mirages teased and tormented him, bending his mind further. And yet, Alvarenga continued to drift, pushed steadily west by ocean currents. The calendar flipped from month to month. Still, he had not sighted true land, but he refused to surrender. He later said that memories of food, dreams of seeing his family again, and visions of his home kept him going. In the black pit of despair, these memories became his anchor. They tethered him to life. After over a year at sea, Alvarenga was barely recognizable. Thin to the point of skeletal, hair and beard long and wild, and clothes shredded by time and sea, he had been pushed to the edge. But his spirit had not broken. Then, on January 30th, 2014, after 438 days lost at sea, he saw something almost too good to be true land. Though starved and mentally worn thin, he summoned every ounce of remaining energy and rowed toward it. When he finally stumbled ashore, he landed on a tiny speck in the Marshall Islands, having drifted more than 6,000 miles. His nightmare had ended. Locals found him, worn down, but alive. They fed him, gave him water, and tended to his broken body. Within hours, news of his astonishing rescue circled the globe. People everywhere asked the same question: how did he survive? Alvarenga was hospitalized and began the slow process of recovery. His story captivated the world. José Salvador Alvarenga's Odyssey is now considered one of the greatest tales of survival in history. Medical experts were baffled that someone could endure such extremes for so long. Skeptics emerged, but Alvarenga's physical condition and deep trauma spoke for themselves. No detail needed to be fabricated. His body bore the truth. To this day, he holds the record for the longest known solo survival at sea. His saga is a blazing example of human endurance, of a soul that refused to be broken by the unrelenting Pacific. Hope, fragile though it was, kept him alive when everything else had failed. These three stories reveal that survival isn't simply about strength or skills. It's about the unyielding will to go on. Emile Larrey's mechanical genius, Juana Maria's unwavering solitude, and José Salvador Alvarenga's iron will against the ocean, they each illuminate the astounding depth of the human spirit. All of them stood face to face with hopeless odds and survived.